Hello, welcome to Meanlife Studies. In this video, you are going to learn how to print different kinds of patterns using iterative or looping statements using Python. Okay, so if you're a beginner and you started learning Python, it's very important to understand how looping statements will work. And that's possible by printing different kinds of pattern. So if you started printing different kinds of pattern, you will understand that how each and every looping statements will work. Okay, now let's see how we are going to print different kinds of pattern. Okay. So in order to print different kinds of pattern, so before that you should understand how for loop will work. So we are going to use only for loops in this video. Okay. So let's see here. For the syntax would be for I. So I is a variable in the range of. So this range function will help us to take the values of sequence of values from any starting index to any starting value to any ending value. Okay. So even if you could define any step or if not, that's going to take as default value as 1. So even if you could not define any range of starting value, that's going to take it as a starting value as 0. Okay, let's see that. So now if I use 100, and for that this is a for loop, right? So you have to keep an indentation. Okay, next, for each and every iteration, I'm going to printing the value of I. Okay, so even if you use capital I, that's going to return error because Python is a case sensitive. So even if you use capital I and small I, that's going to have the difference, right? So you have to use small I. Now you can see here that's returning a value of sequence numbers from starting with 0 and it's go up to 99. It won't reach up to the ending point. So it always takes the reference of 0. If you have not defined anything, by default that's going to take it as 0 and it will reach up to the 99. So whatever the limit that you have mentioned, it will reach just one before the limit value. Okay. So now if I define 0 also, that's going to return the same data. Okay, just to make you aware, I'm just taking the small limit like 0 to 10. So if you observe, it's printing like 0 up to 9 only. It's not reaching up to 10. So even if you count also, it will be returning 10 values, total of 10 values, right? So now this is returning as column, right? Single column. If you want to print all this in a single row, you can just use comma end as like this. So for that, how it's going to print? For first iteration, the value of I in the range of this one. So I is going to take the range is starting from 0. Now the first iteration, the value of I is 0. For this I, it's going to enter into this looping statement. So how many lines of code that we have written under this particular indentation will start executing one by one, right? So until only this range is not, this for loop is getting failed, after reaching the end position, it will be exit from that particular loop. Okay. Now for the first iteration, the I value will be assigned as 0 and it will enter into this indentation and it will start how many lines of code are there, those many it start executing one by one. Okay. So now print function will help us to printing the values. So whatever we define here, that's going to print. So even if you have not defined anything, if you observe, that's going to print 10 lines. You can see here why it is not coming here, because you are printing all printing statements, right? So that will print empty line. So for each and every iteration, that's going to print empty. So let's see here, if I use 1, that's going to print 1 for 10 times. You can see here you're printing one value for 10 times because this is the loop, right? So the starting value is 0, next value 1. For each and every looping like iteration, that's going to executing the lines of code that we have written under this indentation, right? So that is why we are printing this one value 10 times. After that, if as and when if it reaches to 10, so it won't reach, right? It won't reach. So when it comes to 10, this is out of loop, then the for loop will exits. It won't print anything. Okay. So now it will reach up to 9 only. The limit is ranging from 0. Even if you take the values also, this range will limit 0 to 9 only. So the I value is limited 0 to 9 only. It won't reach 10, right? So that's why as and when if this encounter 9, that is the last point. Okay, and that is the last execution point, and after that it will exit from that particular loop. Okay, so this is how for loop will work, right? So now if you want to print I value, that's going to take for each and every iteration I equal to 0, that's going to print. I equal to 1, that's going to print. So that's why you are getting 0 to 9, this many iteration. For 0th I value 0, that is the first iteration, and that is printing. Next, likewise you can see here. Now if you want to print side by side, you can just use comma end equal to like this. That means for each and every print statement, you are just using end has to be like this. There is no space. For after the printing this one, the next execution will start from there onwards. and it will be printing the next number after 0 side by side. Okay, now you can see here it's printing like 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 9. So even if you want to have spaces in between, just mention one space. You can see now it's printing like 0 space 1, like this it's printing, right? So even if you want to have any special characters in between, you can use that. You can see now. So this is how for each and every iteration it's printing whatever you want. Okay, so this is how it's going to print. Now what we want to print now, we are going to print patterns, right? So we are going to print patterns means it could be any pattern. Okay, for I in range of, I'm just taking the reference of 1. Okay, I need to explain one more thing. If I use 10, that's going to starting from 1, print of, I'm using star. You can see now what it is printing. It is printing a line having different stars. It is starting from 1 up to 9. So even if you count, it will be returning 9 stars. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, sorry. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Total of 9 only, right? Because of it starting from 1, ending up to 9 only. It won't reach up to 10. It will end up with 9 only. 1 just before 1 up to that only it will reach, right? So now we are going to define step up. So if you're not defining any step up, but I mean that's going to take it as a step up of 1 by default. So if you can define anything, that's going to step up of 2. Starting index, this is the starting value, and ending value. It won't reach up to 10, it will reach up to 9 only, right? And then here, what is the step up? Step up value is 2. So it will starting printing of 1. I mean the I value is taking 1, and after that it is not going to reach second. It will directly skip, I mean skip second value, and it will step up to the addition of this step up value from this starting. Okay, now if you execute this one, that's going to print like 5 stars. You can see here it's printing 5 stars because it's printing 1, and after that I value will be step up of 2, step up from 2, from 1 to 2, right? So that's going to return 3. Likewise, even if you want to see these I values, you can able to see 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, right? So this is how the step up will help us to step up. So step up of any defined. Okay, so if you could not define, that's going to take by default value as 1. Okay, so let's see here. If I define 3, that's going to define starting index as 1. I mean starting value is 1. After that, it's going to add 3 for each and every iteration. It's stepping up of 3, 1, 4, 7, and after that 10. 10 won't reach, right? So that's how it's returning like 1, 4, 7. Okay, I hope you understood how we are taking the range of values and how we are iterating through. So these control structures, we can call them as control structure, and this is a looping statements or iterative statement will help us to execute a block of code any number of times we want. Okay, if you observe, so we are defining it. So in that code block, and that comes under this particular indentation, right? This is going to execute how many times, whatever the range that we are defining, those many number of times, whatever the lines of code that we define under this code block, this particular indentation will be executed those many number of times. Okay, now we'll see how we can print different kinds of patterns. For I in the range of, here we are just using a single for loop. We can also use nested for loop. Nested for loop in the sense a loop inside another loop. Okay, let's see that. For I in the range of, I'm just taking 1 to 11. So if you observe, I'm taking the starting value as 1 and ending value is 11. It won't reach up to 11. It will reach up to 10 only, right? So next one, I'm not giving any step up value. If I'm not giving any step up value, that's going to take by default value as step up of 1. Okay. Now in that loop, we are again writing another loop. So that's why we are calling this as nested loop. Okay. For I in the range of, I'm just writing again range of 1, 11. Okay. So this is another loop that we are writing under ith loop. Okay, this is the I loop and this is the jth loop, right? So under this we are going to print the values of I. Okay, what this I means? I is the first value, right? So when it is start executing, it's going to taking the values of 1 to 11, this I value. Okay, let's see here. For the first iteration, I value is 1. Okay, and now it's entered into this entire code block and will start executing all one by one. Okay, after that, if you observe, it is again for loop, right? So when it is encounter another for loop, it start executing, right? So now the j value will be starting from 1. So again it is a loop, and then whatever the lines of code that we have written under this code block that comes under this particular indentation will start executing, right? So now if you observe, it's going to print, what is the value it's going to print? That is I value. So what is the I value up to now? 1 only, right? So here we are printing the I value, and I value is 1. If we enter into this loop, the I value will be assigned as 1, and after that we encounter another loop. In that loop we are just iterating through this one. So how many times this code will print? This print function will print how many times that we are going to iterate through. The jth loop is ranging from 1 to 11, right? And it is going to return the values of j is starting from 1, j up to 10. So now this loop will execute up to 10 times. So whatever the code that we have written under this particular indentation will start executing up to 10 times, right? So now for the first iteration it's printing I value. So what is the I value? 1 only. So next iteration, when j value is increased to 2, the I value will remains 1 only, right? So that's why we'll be getting 1. For the next one, you can see here it will be printing up to 10 times, because you are iterating through this jth loop 10 times. Those many number of times, this what I mean, whatever the lines of code that we have written here, those many number of times it's going to print, right? It's going to execute. Okay, so now if you execute this one, you can see now it's going to print the first line as all is 1. Okay, 10 times. You can see 1 only 10 times. 10 times will be printed. Okay, but after that, when it is reach the end limit of 10, it won't reach up to the 11. It will reach up to the 10th position only. After that, this loop ended, like this loop will exit, and after that it again goes to the upper loop like this loop, and in that loop what is the I value up to now? That is first iteration is 1. So next one it will increase by 1 because the step up is 1. So now I value will get updated to 2. In that loop again it will encounter another loop, right? So same thing, this is a second I value. In that second iteration again it's going to print what? Here the I value is 2. So now it's going to print again the values of 2 up to 10 times, right? So this is how you'll be getting second row as 2. Likewise, because we are printing all I values, this indicates row, this indicates column, guys. Here we are trying to print a square, right? If you observe, this is just like a matrix. So ith and jth elements. So for each iteration, this is the first record, first iteration, second iteration. Likewise, it's going to return up to 1 to 10, and for each iteration it's again printing 1 to 10. I mean, the inner loop is going to execute up to this range, right? 10 times. Okay, now we are trying to printing the I value, so that is why we are getting 1 1 1 2 2 2 3 3 3 up to times, and likewise you will be getting all same values in each and every row. Okay, up to you'll be printing 10, right? You can see now how it's going to print. So if you observe why it is printing like this, here 1 2 3, I mean 1 1 1 up to 10 times, 2 2 2 10 times, 3 3 10 times. You can see here it's printing all values, but it is not printing as square shape. Why? Because we are printing for each and iteration like this. We have to keep side by side, right? So that is the reason I'm just using end equal to like this. Now you can see here again how it's printing. It's printing in a single line, and we have to end after this loop. We have to give a one line, right? One empty line. So how we can do that? By using, we have to come out of this for loop like jth loop, and after ending of each and every jth loop, we have to print one new line. Okay. Now you can see here. So how it's printing? After printing of all values from this loop, when we when we exit from this loop, we have to print to next line. So that is why we are printing new line. So for that we are coming next line. Okay, and from that way we are again going to this loop, right? So how many times? 10 lines. You can see here 10 lines. Even if you want to have spaces, you can just mention here space. You can see now you are getting it, right? So even if you want to have one detail, you can just one more spaces. You can see now you're getting it, right? So now if I remove this to 9 or 5, okay, you can see here I'm just taking the small limits to make you understand. Now this is going to return up to 5 times. Okay, not even 5 times, 4 times only, right? If I mention here 6, that's going to reach up to 5 times. Okay, now if I change that to 6, now it will reach up to 5, and it will be printing up to 5 values, right? Now you can see here in the first row, like it's represent I values, like first row, second row, third, fourth, and fifth rows. Okay, and if you compare like these columns 1 2 3 4 5, this indicates the column, jth column and jth column. You can see here, right? So even if you want to know the index positions of each and every element, like this is a just like a matrix. You can mention like here ith and jth element, ith and jth element, right? So let's see that we can also print them. How we can do that? Here also we can print at you can also print here onwards, no problem. You can just print I comma j. Okay, I'm just using like this. Now if you observe, we are printing all index positions as well. This indicates ith and jth element, ith and jth element, ith and jth element. You can see here I values keep on changing or not? No, I values keep on, having same value, and after that the j value getting changed 1 2 3 4 5, because this is a row and this is a column, right? So first record and j value is getting changed one by one, right? So that is how we are printing all index positions as well. Okay, so even just remove this one, you can see, you can able to see all these values. Okay, so now we are printing all I values, so that's why you're getting 1 1 1 2 2 2 like this. So now if I change this one to j, how it's going to print now? Here the I value is 1, that indicates first row. In this first row, again what you are trying to print, you are iterating through again this loop. In this loop you are printing j value. So now 1 indicates the first row, and next j value is 1 2 3 4 5 up to 5. This will written as 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5. The next one, again it's going to starting from second. In that second, again starting from 1 to 5. So here also you'll be getting 1 2 3 4 5. Here also 1 2 3 4 5. Likewise you'll be getting, if you want to print j value, you can see now it's printing like 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 like this, right? So now in place of this j value, if you want to print any like pattern like this, you can see now you're printing a square pattern, right, having all stars. Even if you want to have any other symbols, you can mention them, no problem, right? So this is how you can print all any patterns also. So this is a square pattern having like 5 by 5 matrix, right? It just looks like 5 by 5 matrix. Okay, now so we can also print all corners of this particular, right, this particular square. How we can do that? So in order to print only the corners, we can call that as hello squared, right? So in order to print only that particular, how we can define values? Here we have to print this star marks only if, and there is a index positions are there, right? Let's see that index positions, you will understand now. So we have to print only this corner values like this one, and last column, and last row, and first column, right? So how we can make that happen? Here in the first row, that indicates I value equal to 1. If I value equal to 1, we have to print all stars, and then the j value here, if you observe, these first one are I and this one is j. So this indicate the first column, that indicates j value equal to 1. So now if we mention I equal to 1, j equal to 1, that's going to print this one and first column one, right? Similarly, if you mention j equal to 5, that's going to print last column. Similarly, if you mention I equal to 5, that's going to print last record, right? So now we have to ensure that all condition, either of the condition is followed, then we have to print. Otherwise, we should not print anything. In that place, we are going to mention single spaces. Okay, let's see that. We are just avoiding this one. Okay, even if you want, you can mention that also, no problem. So now if you print like this, now what we are trying to print after this one, we are printing only stars if only if I equal to what is that, 1, or I equal to that indicates the first row. If you mention I equal to 5, that indicates last row, or j equal to 1, that indicates first column, or j equal to 5, that indicates last column, right? So if these conditions are true, either of them, if we are mentioning logical operator like or, that indicates if any of this condition is true, that's going to perform this, right? This is also conditional, conditional statements, right? Selective statements are, we can also call them as conditional statement. That is one part of control structure. So if this condition is true, we are going to printing of stars, right? So if not, so let's see here why it is printing like this, because we are not mentioning other than those condition, right? So now there is other than this condition, like I is equal to 2 3 4 likewise. So if those conditions, we are going to just printing one space. Okay, and after that we are just ending it up. Now you can see here why it is printing like this. Here we have to come up to this one, right? So now let's check here, we are just using one space. Now you can see here, so it's getting, because here we might be using two spaces, so that's why we are getting like that. So here also we can just use one space. You can see now we are getting exact hello squared. This is the hello squared symbol, right? So we are not going any optimized solution. This is just like a brute force solution. So just make you understand, and just to understand like how for loop will work. Okay, for each and every iteration, and it's getting into the loop, I mean in that loop, and if it encounter any other loop, again it's encounter another loop. So likewise it's going to iterate through, and for each and every iteration it's going to execute the lines of code that we have written inside that particular loop, right? So after each and every execution, I mean after completion of all execution of the code that we have written under this loop, then it's printing to new line, right? And we are printing all stars only if this condition met, right? So that is how we are printing hello squared. Okay, if we mention here different like 8, that's going to print different. You can see here it's printing different. The ranges that we are defining here just to make a square, so that's why we are getting like this. Okay, now I want to print only if, okay, I want to print only the diagonal elements. How could I do that? So even if you want to place this value in place of I, you can just print I value. Now you can see here I value is first row and last row, and second likewise you can see here first column and last column. So similarly you can also mention j value also. You can see here 1 2 3 4 and last 1 2 3 4, and you can see here, right? So now we are going to print only diagonal matrix. Sorry, not even diagonal matrix, only, okay, we can also call that as diagonal, right? So here we are going to print now only diagonal elements from the given matrix. This is just like a matrix, right? So now how we can do that? If we use here only, okay, with addition to that we can print that diagonal first. I'm just using I equal to j. So now if you want to have more clarity, let's print those elements also. Now if you observe, we are printing when I equal to j, that is y equal to 1, j equal to 1. If that is true, we are going to print. Here also we are printing 2 2, these are equal, so that's why we are printing. Here 3 3, that's why we are printing. 4 4, that's why we are printing, right? And these values we are returning only if I equal to j only, right? So just to avoid this one, okay, I'm just avoiding this one. Now we can understand now. So it's printing 1 1, 2 2, 3 3, right? So likewise it's printing, right? So now, and 4 4 and 5 5, it's printing diagonal. So now if I remove all this condition, that's going to print only diagonal matrix. You can see here it's printing only diagonal elements, right? So if you want to have all, you can just mention all of them. You can see now it's printing like this. So if you want to have in detail, like you can take more range, you can easily understand that. You can see now. So why it is printing like this? Here we are taking the range, and here the limit has not changed, right? So you have to change that limit. Okay, now you can see here it's printing, but it's not printing the last one and last row. Why? Because we have to change this I equal to 1 means first row, and I equal to 10, right? Where is that I equal to 10? Here also, right? So now this one print first one and last one, right? So now if you observe why it is not printing here, let's check again. It has to print, right? So for the j in the range of this one, it's going to print if I equal to 1 and or I equal to 10 or this one. Okay, let's remove this condition. Now you can see again it's printing only this one. Okay, I'm just changing these conditions. I'm just removing this one. Now you can see it's printing different patterns like first row and first column only, and it's not taking even others. Let's see why it is not printing. Okay, now we are just taking the range of 10, and in that range I value equal to 1. Okay, now I'm just printing this one a value. You can see 1 1 1, and this is the first column. And why it is not printing here? Okay, why it is not printing? Because you need to understand this value I value or j value won't reach up to 10. It will reach up to 9 only, right? So that's why it's not returning. So you have to change this one to 11. Okay, so now if I change that to 11, now I value will reach up to 10. Now we can able to see that pattern, but we are not printing any spaces other than this condition, right? So you have to print that also. In the else part, you can just print of I comma, okay, not even I, we are just using empty space, right? So you have to use single space. Now you can see here it's printing a pattern like hello square. Even if you want to print any like symbols, you can just print now. You can see now it's printing a square like having 10, right? Size of 10. Okay, now if you want to print diagonal also, you can just mention r I equal to j. Now you can see it's printing. So now tell me, if I want to print off diagonal also, how could I do that? So let's see that. How could I do that? I'm just printing the index positions of each. Now you can see here it's printing all diagonal. So now if I want to print off diagonal also, how could I do that? So off diagonal in the sense this one. So we have to print this one, and next one we have to print second row and eighth one. So if you observe, the value of I plus j equal to 10, I plus j equal to 10. Similarly, second row, eighth one. So that's going to print like I plus j equal to 10 value. Okay. Now, if you observe, this indicates first one. If you observe first row and ninth column, right? And then we have to print this one like here. That indicates second row and eighth column. So now there is a logic. What is that logic? R I plus j equal to 10. Now you can see it's printing. So this value is printing, next value is printing, likewise it's printing, right? So if you change this condition to 9, let's see that how it's printing. Now you can see it's printing like this. So if I change this to 11, will that print like exactly like this? Okay. If you observe, okay, this one indicates 1 and 10. We are printing 1 and 10. So here 2 and 9, right? So the sum of ith and jth elements index positions are 11, right? Because we are printing from 1 to 10. So 1, 10, this is 110. So this is 10 and 1, and this is 9 and here 10 and 1. This is 1. So next one 9 and 2, right? Likewise same thing. Okay. So this is how we can print all of them. So even if you want to print only upper or lower also, lower triangle, we can also print that. Okay. Now I'm just keeping only this condition. And if I execute this one, you can see here, we are printing like this. So now what I have to do, just to print above or lower triangles, I'm just either you have to ignore this one, like this one and this one, right? This particular. So let's see that. What is the condition? I have to print only if j equal to 1, right? That's going to print the column, and I equal to last one, right? I should not contain any other condition. So that's why I'm just copying this entire one and just pasting here. Now you can see here, this time the same thing you are getting, but now we have to print first column. So what is the condition? You should maintain this one, and I should not maintain I equal to 1. So that's why this entire row will be exit, won't print, right? So now you can see it's not printing. Similarly, we should avoid this one. What is this one? J equal to last one, right? So I'm going to avoid this one also. Now you can see we are printing the lower triangle, right? Similarly, we can use it for upper triangle also. We can also print upper. So how could we do that? So in place of I, so okay, first we have to print the first row. That's why we are mentioning I equal to 1. And then we have to print the last column, right? So and remaining all, remaining in the sense this is a common, right? So now if you observe how it's going to print. Now you can see here, it's printing upper triangle, right? Hope you understood. So this is how we will be changing all these conditions. So now even if you want to have off diagonal like reverse triangle also, you can mention like here, this is how it's printing. Now I want to print like this, okay, like first row, first column. Okay, I'm just changing this to first row and changing this to first column. Now I have to change this condition, I plus j equal to 10 or 11. Okay, now you can see here it's printing reverse triangle. So if you observe, these are different, right? So even if you want to have reverse also, you can print that also. How could we do that? Similarly, all just changing of all these conditions only. Okay, I hope you understood. Now we can also print like reverse of this one, like 2. Okay, we printed. Okay, this is how you will be changing a lot of condition, and you can print any patterns you want. Okay, I hope you understood. If you have any doubt, please let me know in the comment section. Thank you.